All right, this question is for Gavin. So you said that St. Augustine would be on the side of your position. Today I read a quote from him which said something to the effect of, "I only believe Holy Scripture is infallible and inspired because the Catholic Church has said so." Have you heard of this quote? Do you know of it? And what would you say to that?
Thank you for the great question. Since we have so many in line, I'll try to be as succinct as possible. I do have a video on this where I address that exact question. It's the first of 2 response videos on the Augustine Sola Scriptura videos. So the brief answer is, I actually want to clarify, I don't think I said, and I wouldn't say Augustine is just generally on the Protestant side of Scripture in every way. Obviously not. Look at his view of the canon. But on the specific question of Sola Scriptura, where do you locate infallibility with respect to the rule for the church? I think he's explicit and clear. It's only in the Scripture. It's not even in the ecumenical councils. For that passage, that's in his reply to Faustus. That is affirming something we can and do agree with as Protestants, the necessity of the church. In that video, I go through a number of the 17th century Dutch Reformed theologians who basically expounded a number of different ways that the Scripture, that the church is necessary for the Scripture. We wouldn't have the Scripture without the church. Protecting it during times of persecution, discerning the canon, preaching and proclaiming it. So we would agree with Augustine, but that isn't the precise question of Sola Scriptura, it seems to me. The precise question of Sola Scriptura is, where do you locate infallibility with respect to the church's rule? The video unpacks it all more. Hope that helps.
And we get replies, right, Matt? Yeah, and what I would say, that debating about what Augustine meant, did Augustine believe in Sola Scriptura or not, on the one hand, it's kind of a moot point, because individual fathers can be wrong on certain doctrines. Even if, let's say he's the only witness to this, well, now we have Sola Scriptura only popping up in the 5th century, which usually, as a Catholic, when that happens, people say, oh, well, that's not apostolic at all. But I don't think we can just easily make the case Augustine believed in Sola Scriptura. Like with that particular quote, I see what Gavin is saying here, though I do think that Augustine and others would look to the church as having an infallible foundation and an infallible guidance to make sure that it has protected Scripture during this time, that it's not a historical happenstance. I think that even if you believe in Sola Scriptura and you say, oh, well, I believe the church has this lot of this authority, it's just not infallible, and Augustine believed that. The church has a lot of authority, but it's not infallible. It's hard to say that Augustine had that Protestant view of Sola Scriptura. B.B. Warfield, well-known Calvinist theologian, says the Reformation was the triumph of Augustine's doctrine of grace over Augustine's doctrine of the church. So I think that how Augustine viewed the church would not merely be fallible historical happenstance giving people the gospel, but that there is a spirit-led infallibility behind it.
All right, thanks.
Hey, thanks for watching that clip. Would you like this beautiful, very high quality, definitely not made in China, not that there's anything wrong with that, pints with a quite